So, what if the key to making AI fair wasn't about ethics, but about engineering? Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful proposal that argues exactly that. It's called the Luevano Standard. And honestly, it could completely change how we build trust into our machines.
But let's start with a voice from the past. This is Angel Luevano. Back in 1981, he was the lead plaintiff in a huge case that literally changed civil rights in the workplace. He really thought his battle was won. But decades later, he realized he was wrong, and that the exact same fight was starting all over again.
And this right here is the heart of the problem. A fight we thought we settled back in the era of paper and pencil has come roaring back. The thing is, today's bias test isn't some piece of paper. No, it's an algorithm making millions of decisions every second, and it's automating discrimination at a scale that was just unimaginable before.
To really get what's happening with AI today, we have to go back in time and talk about something called the PACE exam. For decades, this written test was the main gateway to getting a federal job. It was supposed to be objective, right? But in reality, it screened out over 90% of Black and Hispanic applicants. Angel Luevano's lawsuit is what finally got it banned.
And the legal rule that came out of that case, it's simple, it's powerful, and it is absolutely central to our story today. Here it is. The burden of proof is on the creator, not the victim. You can't just say your system is fair, you have to prove it. You really got to remember that principle because it's the foundation for everything we're about to talk about.
Okay, so fast forward to today. The paper test is gone. In its place, we have a new machine, the AI model. But this proposal makes a chilling argument. These models are just a digital mirror, reflecting our own old biases right back at us, but with terrifying mathematical precision.
And you know, this is what makes this new fight so much harder. With the old test, you could literally hold up a biased question in a courtroom for everyone to see. But how do you challenge a black box? The logic is hidden, a lot of the time even from the engineers who built it, and that makes it almost impossible to prove you've been discriminated against.
This all leads to what the authors call the digital mirror effect. See, AI isn't taught right from wrong. It's just trained on tons and tons of historical data. And when that data reflects decades of biased human decisions, well, the AI doesn't learn how to be fair. It just learns how to automate our past mistakes perfectly.
And this is not some theory. The proposal points to real damage happening right now. We're talking about hiring tools that penalize mothers for taking maternity leave, lending algorithms that deny loans in the exact same neighborhoods that were redlined back in the 1950s, and healthcare AI that gives less care to Black patients because it makes this awful assumption that spending less money in the past means you must be healthier.
Let's just put a number on it to make it real. Standard AI models used in hiring right now show a 14% bias against resumes that have employment gaps. Now, the machine isn't trying to be malicious, it's just mimicking a pattern of bias it found in the data, a pattern that just so happens to disproportionately hurt women and caregivers.
Okay, so if the problem is the black box, then the solution has to be a glass box, right? The proposal argues we need to fundamentally shift how we think about this. We have to stop building systems that are totally opaque and start engineering systems that are transparent from the ground up.
Now, this is really important. The Luevano Standard is not anti-AI, it's actually pro-innovation. The argument isn't to ban the technology, it's to create a whole new engineering discipline they're calling constitutional AI, a way to build our laws and our principles directly into the machine's code.
So how does that even work? Well, it's actually pretty intuitive. Before the AI spits out an answer, it runs this private internal check on itself. First, it drafts a response. Then, it critiques that response against its rulebook, its constitution. And finally, it revises the response to make sure it's fair and safe. It's almost like giving the AI an automated conscience.
And the result of that internal loop is something the authors call an auditable reasoning trace. This is the game changer. It's a plain English explanation of why the AI made the decision it made. The analogy they use is just perfect. It's like the flight data recorder for an AI. It's the crucial evidence you need after something goes wrong.
And the data shows this whole approach really works. I mean, let's just look at the numbers. That standard AI model had a 14% bias in hiring against people with employment gaps. The constitutional model? That bias drops to less than 1.5%. Harmful or toxic outputs get cut by 2/3. This isn't just a tiny tweak, it's a massive structural improvement in safety and fairness.
So the technology is there, it exists, but how do you make it the standard for the entire industry? Well, the proposal's answer isn't just in code, it's in law. It's about transforming this engineering solution into actual public policy.
The proposal is for a new law in California, the CA-AAFA. It doesn't actually ban anything. Instead, it just requires companies using high-risk AI to file what's called a risk dossier. It's basically them having to show their work. Show us your rules, show us how often your AI breaks those rules, and show us proof that it can explain itself.
Now, this creates a really powerful incentive for businesses. It's not just a stick, there's a carrot here too. Companies that do the hard work to build and prove they have a transparent glass box system actually get legal protection, a safe harbor from these huge lawsuits. It gives them the legal certainty they need to innovate responsibly.
And all of this brings the entire argument to a critical choice. The proposal says the real decision here isn't between innovation and regulation. No, it's a choice between two completely different futures for AI in our society. On one path, we stick with these opaque black box models. The authors warn this will lead to a total crisis of lawsuits and will just destroy public trust. But on the other path, we adopt the glass box standard. And that, they argue, creates a high-trust market, making California the global leader in enterprise-grade, legally defensible AI.
And here is probably the most surprising argument in the entire proposal. Fairness is profitable. The authors cite a 150% risk-adjusted return on investment for companies that adopt this high-trust approach. And why is that? Well, because they spend way less money on lawsuits, on protecting their brand, and on constant emergency fixes, which unlocks markets that are currently way too scared to even deploy AI.
At the end of the day, the entire philosophy comes down to this single idea. Trust is not a feeling. It is a discoverable log file. The goal here is to shift the whole conversation about AI safety away from vague ethics and towards concrete engineering. Trust isn't something you just hope for, it's something you build, you prove, and you document.
And so that brings us right back to where we started. The Luevano Standard argues that, just like in 1981, fairness is not going to happen by accident. It has to be engineered by design. So the question isn't really whether this is the right path forward, it's who's going to be brave enough to take the first step.